That's exactly what this is like.
I love when I finally get to the third wheel of a relationship. It's so nice. So comfortable.
You're mixing up bases.
Welcome to the Rewatchers on the Pod, a podcast where we watch movies and then talk about them. You're here with me, Tyler Harris, and...
Gwen Hammer.
Tyler McKinley.
Justin Hammer.
And... Oh, yes. Sorry, I was going to introduce you, but yes, go ahead.
Katie McKinley.
Katie
Do
McKinley.
you even listen to the podcast? Do you know how this works?
Our newest...
Katie, I thought you were spot on.
not regular that is there for like most of the podcast parts, but the recording parts. Thanks for being here, Katie.
Yeah.
And our special guest this week,
Rob Starks.
Rob Starks, thank you so much. Rob brought us the Babadook this week. If you haven't seen the Babadook, don't worry, I'm about to cover everything you need to know about the Babadook in stunning detail and clarity. Here we go. Car crash. Mom floats back down to bed. The kid has had that dream again. He promises to violently end the monster should the need arise. The child builds a monster hunting weapon, then performs magic and goes to school. Mom goes to work at the nursing home where Picky Gladys doesn't want milk in her coffee. The child's school calls because he brought a crossbow to school. I guess the child's name is Samuel. Samuel does magic for a stranger, then reveals the intimate details of his father's death to the same stranger. A little girl doesn't want to share a birthday party with Sam. Then Sam climbs really high. Amelia takes out Grace's trash. Amelia and Sam perform the ritual and then settle in to read the Babadook book. Sam is rightfully terrified. Amelia reads the book again, then samples the incredible gifts of late-night TV offerings. Then samples the never-ending gift of late-night alone-time offerings. But the Babadook is in Sam's room, so he interrupts her to protect her. They sleep through the night. Too far through the night. Amelia ruins the bingo game. Robbie tells Amelia that he will cover for her if she wants to go home. Amelia misses 10 calls from Claire and while she eats ice cream and then peeps on a couple at the mall. Sam has been talking to the Babadook all day. The dog is not a fan of Sam's magic act. Amelia discovers that Sam has been hanging out in the basement with all his dad's old stuff. Robbie comes over and the jig is up. Amelia goes through her husband's old stuff. They eat dinner and Amelia eats glass that the Babadook supposedly put in her soup. Sam watches his magic movies. Amelia's room has been trashed and a picture of her and her husband has been vandalized. Sam tells her it was the Babadook did it. Sam keeps telling her not to let it in. Amelia tears up the Babadook book, then then they go to Ruby's totally kicking Princess Party. That sentence reads, they go yo boobies totally kicking Princess Party. It took me a while to decipher. Amelia receives unsolicited advice from someone whose name I will assume it's Christina for some reason. Amelia finally snaps. Sam pushes Ruby out of treehouse, which she definitely deserved, to leave the party. Amelia asks Sam why he can't just be normal, and he dodges the questions by seizing and telling the Babadook to get out of their car. The doctor runs some tests on Sam, then gives Amelia pills to let them sleep. Sam takes his pill, and after Amelia and Sam swear a mutually beneficial protection pact. Amelia rides a sedative train into Dreamland. When she wakes back up, Mr. Babadook's book has been taped back together and is on her doorstep. It has some new unflattering pages. She burns it. She calls Claire to tell her that someone is stalking her. After she hangs up, the Babadook calls and dooks at her. She goes to the police, but they can't do anything because she burned the ding-dang book already. The Babadook works at the police station, apparently. Sam learns about Parkinson's disease. Grace crosses the Oscar line one too many times. Amelia finds an infestation of cockroaches in her house. The Department of Community Services drops by. Sam is tired from all the drugs Amelia's been giving him. They'll be back in a week. Amelia sees Mr. B in Grace's house. Sam wants to go to bed at 6 p.m. Amelia fights to keep him awake so all the drugs she is giving him will work. Once he is asleep, Mr. B starts making a rocket. Can she get 10 minutes of peace and quiet, goddammit? Mr. B crawls around in a wholly unsettling way and then attacks Amelia, who maybe swallows him. Amelia watches an old George Méliès film that apparently stars Mr. B until the morning. Amelia loses her job. Sam can't find any food, so Amelia lovingly suggests shit as a possible hunger solution. Then realizes that was probably a bad move. Turns out it actually did fix Sam's hunger problem. They go to Wally's for breakfast. Then Amelia sees a bunch of cockroaches and Mr. B himself, which causes her to hit that clearly nice man's brand new car. So they go home and Amelia and Sam take a full clothes bath. Sam thinks staying in the house is maybe not a good idea, but Amelia just just need to sleep with this violin for a minute. Amelia wakes up to find Sam fully outfitted with a monster invasion and on the phone with Grace. Amelia cuts the phone line. Amelia very cavalierly threatens Sam with a knife, then realizes there may not have been an awesome thing to do. Sam pulls a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with his medication. Amelia watches cartoons, then sees dead Samuel, but really he is almost dead Samuel, and she is holding a knife. The dog is freaked out. Amelia makes some ice cream. Sam falls asleep. Amelia watches herself on the news. Then the power goes out. Awake Samuel goes down to the basement. Amelia's husband is down there. He's been alive this whole time? Oh wait, all he wants is a boy. Not her husband. Mr. B is here, and he's dropping his clothes from the chimney and ceiling. Amelia lets him in. Amelia kills the dog, then pulls out the tooth that has been bothering her this whole time. Sam is next. She turns on the charm and tries to lure him out of his room. Sam pees his pants. Amelia lets Sam know how she really feels. Sam home alones Amelia. Grace knocks on the door, and Sam discovers that the dog is dead. Amelia tells Sam that they are going over to Grace's for the night. Amelia wants Sam to meet his dad, so he stabs her and then traps her in the basement. Sam is trying to save Amelia. Amelia is trying to kill Sam. Amelia vomits up Babadook possession, but is then reminded that you can't get rid of the Babadook. Amelia remembers that night from 7 years ago and then faces down the Babadook. The Babadook looks really tired. Amelia sees what is under his hat, then he runs down to the basement. Amelia picks up Sam from Gracie's for the birthday party on a sunny day. Department of Community Services drops by for fun. Amelia encourages Sam to train in case of monsters now. Amelia gives Mr. B his ration of worms and then goes to her son's magic show.
I just remember what part she plays on Game of Thrones.
Did you? Okay, so she does play one of my favorite parts on Game of Thrones. We'll start with Katie because she might have gotten it first. Okay. Katie, who do you think she is on Game of Thrones?
She is the Arya's performance mentor that plays Cersei. And it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yes, she is. She is the one that Arya, the actress that Arya loves so much. And she's really great in that. But yeah, Essie Davis is very good. Rob, tell us, why did you choose the Babadook?
Well, I really love this movie because I guess when I first saw it, I was really stressed out and like tamping down a lot of stress. And so, I mean, the metaphor in the movie is like super duper clear. I feel like without being like too trite or whatever about it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, like I fell in love with the movie because it was like, oh yeah, this is dealing with like bad feelings and stress and like awful stuff, and like you actually have to deal with it or else you'll turn into a monster, which is kind of how I felt sometimes around that time in my life. But anyways, yeah, that's why I love the movie, and I hadn't seen it for a little while, so I was excited to revisit it, to watch it again. And see how I felt about it now. And I guess, I've seen it a couple times, so a lot of the scares are like a little defanged, not quite as scary anymore for like all the jump scares and stuff. But I still feel like it resonates a lot with, I don't know, like everybody gets stressed out and feels shitty sometimes and stuff. And so I don't know, I like horror movies a lot, and this one I liked in particular. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it does the things that you want. Like, I think that great horror movies do, which is basically reterm real world things and give you monsters or ways to deal with them, mm-hmm. or like overcome them or understand them better. And this movie does that really well. So yeah, and no one else had seen this, right, Gwen? This was everyone else's kind of first time. I saw this years ago, but again, had not seen it in a long time, so I was excited to kind of revisit it. But yeah, what were some of your guys' impressions on first watch? I know, like, coming into this movie, I think I had this similar experience. It felt a little like, it felt really hyped up. In a scary, I was like very nervous to see this movie, and it is like a very nerve-wracking movie, an intense movie, but not in the way I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Or to have, like, Rob has kind of addressed kind of the message that it does, which I think is so good and so insightful. But yeah, I don't know, what was your guys' experience tonight over the last couple hours watching it?
I think I liked it. Which was not something I expected
I didn't expect it either, but I'm glad, yeah.
Which, by the way, just for future reference, a head getting cut in half is gore.
Yeah.
Like, it was fine. I survived, but that's
I mean,
gore.
I will say in the content warning, I said there's not an abundance of gore.
Okay, fair
I didn't say there's no gore because I was very careful to say there. I wouldn't have said there isn't anything of any kind in it because I know I would be wrong.
I read it as you saying there was no gore, just a moment of body horror, which was the vomiting.
Yeah.
But
Which is
yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed it, and it was very different than I thought it would be. Particularly the first act was a lot different than I was expecting. Which honestly, usually the first act of horror movies are my least favorite part, which was the case in this one, but it wasn't awful. Mm-hmm. Usually the first act of horror movies are really awful, and this one it wasn't bad. It was just parts of it felt really rushed. They didn't take time to establish some things. And I felt like that was something throughout the whole movie that I feel like could have just been tweaked a little bit to make it a little bit more clear. When they were trying to deliver information, I felt like the editing could have been like established where characters were at that moment before they made a reveal or something like that. But that's literally all I have negative to say about the movie. Everything else is really, really good. That whole concept of dealing with past trauma and having to face it and deal with it as opposed to just pressing it down until it explodes type of thing is presented in a really interesting way. And there's lots of interesting small commentaries on it throughout. I think the part that resonates with me the most is that, you know, you expect in a movie where there's some monster or something that they have to either triumph over it or they end up dying at the end, one of the two. Whereas this one is very different, where it's still around and they keep it around. And Sam says something very interesting of like, you can never get rid of the Babadook, which is, if you take that directly right into the metaphor, it's very much like you're never going to be free of those feelings. You're never going to erase what happened. And you're always going to have to deal with it, and it's always going to have some sort of effect on you. Even when she goes down in the basement at the end, you know, it's like it's not just a simple, here's the ball, I'm leaving now. There's a moment of tension there. There's a moment of fear. There's a moment of almost another kind of scary moment. And that's how it is with those feelings. And, you know, in real life, you have to face them again. And sometimes it's not always easy to face them again, but the more you face them, the more you learn how to cope with them. And I really love how this presented that. And it's not something you get out of a lot of different horror movies.
Yeah.
I really liked that it was presented as, or at least it seemed to me, that taking care of the Babadook was like a daily task, and it wasn't a pleasant one, but it was something that she did, it seemed like, every day, and she had a method.
Yeah. Well, I think even her addressing, we see her experience on that day, and then she's like, it was a pretty quiet day. I think that's even important. It's almost never, I would say, an easy thing to keep up on that, but it's the keeping up on it that's important. But yeah, that's really great.
Well, and Samuel even says, it seems like it's easier today, or it's getting easier, or something like that. And then I thought having him pick the worms for the Babadook, having him help out with taking care of that, was very, fit very well with the metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. Justin, did you have any thoughts on it? Kind of your first?
Yeah. This, I don't know. I've got thoughts just kind of swirling around right now because I've kind of been in this sort of psychological horror mode for a while with the movies that I've been watching on my own. I watched Midsummer not too long ago. Before that was why am I blanking on the name? It's my favorite horror movie. Hereditary. Yeah, man, that movie is so good.
Yeah, I love Ari Aster's stuff.
Yeah, so I've kind of been in that zone a little bit, and honestly, coming into this one tonight, I don't know if I just my expectations were so far off what we were going to be experiencing, because we had talked about it being more of more along the lines of a thriller movie maybe instead of a straight up horror movie, and I don't know how you distinguish between those two exactly, but I don't know it. I enjoyed it, and it definitely was not what I was expecting in a good way. I think visually, I loved this movie. Visually, it was fantastic. It made me feel things, just the way that everything was presented visually, and like the emotions that I had. It felt very. There's a depressing feeling that came from like the colors that you see. The inside of the house has a certain palette that's associated with it. The clothes that the characters wear when they're outside of the house are very like drab. But anyways, like all of that stuff, I kind of was like expecting this to just sort of be like a monster movie when I first came into it, and so I was kind of prepared for that. And then that's part of it, but there's obviously so much more with the kind of the metaphor of stress, or I just want to say like this is something that like I would not have felt these same feelings when I was single versus now that I'm married. And
Yep.
the entire storyline about the husband dying and his possessions, like all of his stuff being in the basement locked away, like all of these things, like I've had thoughts about like what if I were to lose Gwen at some point and had to go on and live my life, or lose a child and like deal with the aftermath of that, of like their stuff being in my house. And so there's a lot of stuff that I'm thinking about right now that kind of touches on those things and made it much more real for me than I was expecting starting when we started watching tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not married. I don't have kids. My thoughts to the first act were, shut the fucking kid up. Jesus Christ, I'm never having children. Stuff like that is what I thought of very frequently. I remember when I saw this movie. But yeah, I think that's obviously... I think that this movie, not that that's unique in horror movies, but presenting that perspective of like a single mother, and I feel like in a pretty honest and like unbridled way at a lot of points of this movie, makes this movie feel so different from other movies that deal with grief or something like that. It's such a fresh and interesting perspective on that, for sure.
With the stress of like I don't have kids either, but just I know people with kids, and I have nieces and nephews, and like I see how how hard that is and everything. And yeah, I love that with the kid, the director like kind of walked this line between like the kid's like partly like really adorable, like with his magic tricks and stuff, and also so fucking annoying. Like, like if I had a kid and they were like sleeping on me and like grabbing my throat while I'm trying to sleep and stuff like that, that sounds like really, really, really hard.
Yeah, I've had those moments.
Yeah, that was nice to. I mean, yeah, like I don't have that experience really, and I feel like the movie like did a pretty good job of making me like kind of feel that and empathize with that and everything. So that was another thing that I really liked about it, the performance that they got out of that kid.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a directing thing. I think that's just how children are.
Half cute, half
I think that they just have these like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde sides of them where they're adorable, and then the next second they're absolutely terrible, which Tyler and I talk about on a daily basis.
Yeah. So I think it's fascinating in this movie how, and this is like another one of those sub things that like really digs deeper into the subject, which I liked, how in the first act she's not really suffering from the Babadook. She's not the one seeing it. It's her son. Mm-hmm. But he's never met his father. He's never actually, he doesn't remember the incident. He didn't have necessarily that trauma. But since he's the one that's seeing it, it's actually her bearing it is affecting him so much that he's the one first manifesting any sort of problems with how she's handling it, which then is a catalyst for then her, feeling it. So I thought it was interesting that was the avenue it went, and is kind of an interesting thing to think about how even when we think it's our own shit that we're bearing away can affect other people.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure we'll talk more about this. I do want to let's talk about the production design and stuff in this movie, which I really love so much. I found, especially on this viewing, I was so enamored with anything that was ever on TV in this movie. From just like the ads that feel so at this point feel very dated, like an actual 900, like the idea of someone calling a 900 number in 2020 to take care of their sexual needs is really like hilarious to me in a way. But just that whole package of kind of like what that entails and what that brings to the table, down to like the like George Méliès feeling movie that she watches that has the Babadook in it. I found myself being like, man, it'd be really fun to shoot something like that, and I can't imagine how difficult it would be to recreate that feeling and tone, and even just the production elements in those little shorts, I think, are so fantastic. But yeah, I don't know if any of that stuck out to you guys, but even just the design of the Babadook, that first time you see it, he's cockroaching around on the ceiling, like that kind of stuff is so good.
Yeah, he's such a cartoony, like funny looking shape. He's like a giant trench coat with the like claw hands and a top hat with like messy hair sticking out. It's like, it's like this really like kind of ridiculous shape, but it also is like really freaky looking. I think.
Did we ever see his face outside the book?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Times.
the when it's like kind of the stop motion kind of thing where he's like freaking out and he's on the ceiling above her. We see his
just
face
that,
pretty
like
briefly.
that first time.
And then in that scene you were just talking about with on the commercial where she was like watching TV,
And you
like,
see
pops up a
him
few
in
times.
the neighbor's house in the background.
That's
She's
Well, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I was watching, with my sweater in front of my face, my glasses off, my phone up. So
Speaking about production, though, the audio in this movie is fascinating to me. I do have kind of a love-hate relationship with it, just because so I don't know if it's my speakers or if this is intentional, but
I just wondered about that.
the audio is turned like background noise is turned way the fuck up, and it's like it sounds like the reverb's also really turned up, but also very compressed. It's okay. Best comparison I have: downloading like a screamo track off of LimeWire in 2002. That has been like re-downloaded and re-uploaded multiple times to the fact where it's compressed so badly that the guitar sounds like it's underwater. That's the sound of everything in this movie, and at least, and I don't know. Once again, I don't know if it was like a setting on my TV or whatever, or if that's how the movie's mixed.
No, I didn't. I wondered if it was if it was intentional. If you guys had something like so it wouldn't wake your kid up or something.
Oh, so it was different.
Yeah, when the scary stuff happened. The background noise did go up, and it was a lot of like kind of
Okay.
stuff.
I
you couldn't
honestly,
hear
towards the end of it, I was thinking we maybe should have checked to see if they had a stereo track versus
Okay.
because I'm wondering if it was a surround track trying to play through a 2-channel system or
Because
something.
it kind of honestly made a cool thematic thing
That's
happen.
what I was
because-
thinking.
I
I
thought it
liked
was
it.
on purpose.
Because
That was
all the
great.
scratching was really prominent and really jarring, and even sounds that weren't scratching sounded like scratching.
Yeah.
And I thought that was intentional. And the moments when they're in the car, you can't hear them talk because it's so loud of that scratching sound. And I thought that was like, that's what that only happens because they're in the car where the trauma happened. And that's why it sounds like this, which I thought was like a really artistic choice. And
which was kind of too bad because like that it's the really great part when she's like, "Why can't you be normal?" Like you could hardly hear her say that, and he just goes like, "Ah!" And it's so good.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that part's hard not to laugh at now because that's a meme that's so like prominent. That's like where
but
memes have ruined television.
just the sound of his like little scream is kind of amazing, I think. But it was
Well, damn it.
something with the mix.
yeah.
Well,
We did hear that sharp tooth from Land Before Time like growl
Yeah.
like so many times.
So-
though,
it's
like,
so
very
clearly,
prevalent.
yeah.
Like, because of that.
Man. Well, I apologize to everyone.
No.
I have to sit through that, and
I brought it up too, like just right before this. I was like, this went an Oscar for its sound because it was very like, I thought it was intentional because it made you feel super like stressed the whole time. You're like, she just put down a glass and everything's shattering. Like,
Well,
it
that's
just
why I
felt
said I had
super
a
loud.
love-hate relationship with it, because like the audio itself is technically bad. Like it sounded so bad, but then I mean, we're talking too much about it because it wasn't intentional.
Yeah, it's like a meta commentary.
I mean,
There's a lot of
this is
stuff right
absolutely
now.
a great example of once you have released art into the world, you have no control over how people experience it.
Right, yeah.
But
So sorry,
but I will say,
Jennifer
trying to
Kent.
connect that same thing, though, at least make some sort of connection with something that was intentional, is the Babadook, when they're out of the house, if correct me if I'm wrong, is never actually seen except when they're in the car,
Yeah.
I think that is
so.
which is where the trauma occurred. So that at least that was intentional. I feel
There's
like.
the close of the police station,
yeah.
which you see, like the costume.
Oh yeah, and there are hands there, so that can't be like misinterpreted or
Right,
something.
yeah.
So never mind, I'm a fucking idiot, and I shouldn't be on this podcast.
Well, see you later.
But it was in the car like a lot, which made
Well,
sense. Yeah.
I wonder if like the trauma was extended to a situation with policemen there. 'Cause
Yeah.
there would have been policemen at the scene.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was
and-
thinking
That
too.
were maybe
Yeah.
not as like empathetic as they could be, or wouldn't even matter. Like if she's like really, really upset, maybe I don't know. Yeah.
Like anytime she gets super upset, like that trauma comes up. Like,
This may be the first time she's interacted with police since the accident as well.
Trying to get
With
help
that
and
kid,
not
I'd be
getting it.
shocked.
Yeah.
But
at least it only did not hit his eye. At least the dart didn't
Yes.
All right. The most
Yes.
important
his
thing.
eye or something worse. It's like I feel like an eye is a pretty big deal to get hit by a dart. I'd rather get
I mean,
hit anywhere
you got
else.
two of them. It's they're like kidneys. Like,
I mean, you
who
could hit
needs
an
to-
artery and somebody could bleed to death or something. I guess
Yeah,
that's
there you go.
technically worse.
I
But
guess.
you
Like,
could go right
yeah.
down their throat if they were like
Oh,
Lordy.
they were facing you and had their mouth open screaming.
which children would do. I'm imagining kids playing a game with darts. Like, all right,
How did you get a
Open
dart
up.
in the back of your throat?
I love how at the end she's like, "It's fine. You can play with your dart gun. That's super dangerous. Just do it back here, like in the
Yeah.
backyard. It's cool."
Yeah, I mean, she begins to. I mean, she does realize. I think at some point, like he is gonna make $1 million someday, or be in prison his entire life. And so, like either way, you kind of got to play the odds and be like, I'm gonna let you be I'm gonna let you off your leash a little bit around home.
That kid's gonna be on Shark Tank. He'll be like, "Yep, I got a weapon that fights depression."
Well,
How does it? Oh God, my eye!
You're not sad.
Are you Mark Cuban? I don't know why I had to be Mark. That's the only shark I know. I think.
If the Mavs keep playing like that, then you might be sad.
Yeah, I think I think that really so many of the elements of this. This is another thing I love about the genre of horror when it's done well is. It's sparse in a way that makes all of its pieces important. And if they can connect all those pieces, I think it represents kind of this economy in filmmaking that is really admirable and also lets them tell a story like this about depression and trauma in such an insanely cool and weird way. I don't know. The shot that I always think of with this movie too is the slow kind of shot of her when she's watching the news and she's in the background in the window of the news story, and like that stuff is like so well done. And I also couldn't help but think of David Lynch at certain points in this movie because this movie does have several sequences of these very like dreamlike moments, and they feel very much like something that David Lynch
The
would make
overlay
way
with the
he
fog.
shoots. Yes,
Yeah.
boy, which is again, it's like one of my favorite things because it's so theatrical and like it's just so good. But I think even that shot of the Babadook going down the stairs when you're seeing it from his perspective and that shaking and down the stairs and into the basement feels very, very Lynchy as well. But
It's almost like Evil Dead with the fast.
yes,
cannons
oh
kind of
yeah,
thing.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah, there's some cool production things from a cinematography standpoint and just I don't know what you'd call it, like technique standpoint, where I've never seen time lapse used quite like that and so often in a movie, but not feel gimmicky.
Yeah.
It felt like it actually lended itself to the tone and the intensity of the moments and make it feel like, oh, I didn't get any fucking sleep. Like, just those weird moments, the moments where she's, slow motion falling into the bed where it's like dawdling on her. Lots of just really cool things like that you don't find a ton in horror movies. Or I mean, even just movies in general. That's usually reserved for like Michel Gondry type of stuff and more surrealistic, lower budget films. Not that this was a massive budget for this film, but it's a genre that you don't see that stuff a lot. So it's really cool to have that involved in that genre.
Yeah, for sure. Let's. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but let's definitely talk about performances. A really sparse cast in this movie, but yeah, Essie Davis, who plays Amelia, is just incredible. Like, this is one of those movies that I watch and I'm like, I can't imagine like filming this day after day to like get this stuff. Because man, she is just really incredible. I think in this movie. This was also Jennifer Kent, the director. This was her first time. This was her first feature that she directed, which is really incredible. And especially when you think about the performances that we've mentioned, like of Essie Davis and the kid whose name I don't know, but Samuel, as we learned his name is. They are really, really great. Yeah, I don't know. Was there anything that stuck out to you guys in that vein, kind of performances or anything like that?
I think was it her sister who, like, this woman needs help, obviously, but the sister has her own shit going on, and it was a really, like, it felt really real. Like, yes, I recognize that you need help, but I just cannot. Just her delivery of that.
Yeah. It's funny because I can see a movie being made about Claire where you just know that she has a crazy sister who causes her a lot of stress. And part of her journey is learning how to draw a healthy boundary. You know what I mean? Like, which is so interesting. And I think just like it reinforces like how well they deal with those themes in this movie for sure.
Did anybody else not like the scene with the like the party scene with the other like bitchy moms who are like, I can't even get my workout in anymore? That felt like, to me, that scene specifically, I was like, okay, yeah, like we get it. We didn't need this.
I was bitching about that thing.
No, that is not what I'm saying.
Earlier
I'm saying that this. It's just that specific scene felt very heavy-handed.
They feel kind of cartoony.
Yeah. It didn't feel like it fit entirely with the overall tone of everything else that kind of was going on.
It felt like cliche, but I liked her response to that. I liked her reaction, especially because with like social media, how it is, and like if you're dealing with shit in your life and you're just like, I don't want to see another post from you. Like, I'm done with you complaining about your crap or like posting how great your life is. Like, I don't want to see it. So I kind of liked it, but I feel like it was super heavy. Like, the way it was done wasn't ideal.
I think the important part of that scene, the thing I love about that scene is just her being like, oh, I work with disadvantaged women who have lost their husbands. Like, that feels so real in a way that a lot of like well-intentioned people will try to give advice in that way and to like validate why they are a good person to be getting advice from on whatever topic you're going through, whatever. But yeah, I totally see it does descend into this cliched moment of that later for sure. But yeah, what about the scene? Let's talk about the scene in the treehouse that takes place right after that too, which is the two children.
So I actually loved this scene.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
fantastic. Yeah, just cutting back and forth between the kids talking to each other. The little girl just being horrible to Samuel, and then like the interaction between the sisters. Like, that was really amazing. The way
Yeah.
that was cut back and forth. Yeah, I loved that scene.
I think that kind of goes to Tyler's point that he brought up earlier about how the trauma that Amelia is not dealing with is affecting Samuel. Is we have a couple of those moments, and both of them are conversations with Claire. Actually, the one at the park where it keeps cutting back and forth, and you're just watching Samuel climb higher and higher until he's eventually in one of the most shocking. Like it's a shot that I like. Initially have to laugh at because I'm just like, that's a whole child just up on top of a swing set. And then, but like, it's almost like in those moments is her like, emotions are escalating and kind of reaching this point of no control that triggers something in Samuel, whether it's climbing on top of the swing set or him eventually pushing Ruby out of the treehouse, which felt very cathartic and okay to me. Which, I mean, yeah, I don't know how you can tell if your kids are talking to other kids that way, but I feel like I don't know. It's
Maybe
What a-
that's a
what a
stressful
mean
thing
girl.
for the sister, is that her kid's a little bastard. Like a little mean kid that always gets like notes from the teacher or whatever. Like, your kid was being mean again today. Like,
yeah. Your kid is hurt, but it was totally her fault again.
right.
That's the kind of teacher I'd probably be. And then I wouldn't be a teacher for very long.
Yeah, some people just aren't meant for certain careers, and that's absolutely fine.
I'm probably a bad parent because I'd have been like, if Samuel would have told me what she said, I'd been like, you should have pushed her harder. Like, you should have done
I thought
something
you made
more.
weapons, Samuel.
Yeah.
Weak. Your moves are weak.
Take the
You gotta
initiative.
club her next time. Yeah. Oh man.
She's the type of girl who would like make fun of a kid in a wheelchair for not being able to walk, and so it's like you encourage that kid to run her over, man.
I think that those like for the moments that the editing is maybe not as great, I think there are also some sequences in this that are like really superbly edited, and like the cuts work so well for some of that. But yeah, I guess let's talk about. I'm not sure. I just want to get people's impressions on Robbie.
Oh, the doctor or nurse dude.
Yeah.
Whatever he was.
Yeah. I'll be honest. Every time I've watched this, I'm like, don't like that. I don't know what it is. There's something about that guy that I don't know. I don't trust Robbie, but maybe I'm the only one. Okay, I guess
I definitely got like a kind of a weird vibe from him. I wasn't sure how I was supposed to feel about him, to be honest. Like
Sure.
how the director was trying to tell me to feel about this individual, because there's just things about his performance and I don't know, maybe his appearance too. I don't know. It just seems a little too eager to please, wanting to get into her house, just stuff like that. That I'm like, I can't tell if I'm supposed to like him for being nice or if he's like another kind of force in this movie that's negative, that's like trying to get in.
Yeah.
So
That's the last time you see him, huh?
yeah,
It's like when
you don't even
shows
see
up,
him
like,
leave.
out of, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting that there is no goodbye at all. It's just like you don't know if she escorted him to the door. You don't know if he said like, "Well, I'm gonna leave now because you and your kid got some stuff to deal with." Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing there, which I think is, I don't know. I think that might be kind of important that we don't see a goodbye there. Just kind of like how abrupt that is, and to me, that made me like his character a little bit more. Kind of made him feel a little bit safer, because he was. I kind of read him as being like trying to do the right thing. He had some sort of romantic interest there, but he knew things were very complicated and didn't know how to go about that. But as soon as it was like clear that there was more going on with the family, it was just he was out of the picture completely.
Yeah.
He left them and gave them the space that maybe they needed or he thought they needed.
Yeah, I feel like maybe in like a lesser movie, he would have been like, he showed up again and like been a creep or something, like, which I don't know, that's like a valuable story to tell as well, but like, wasn't necessary in this movie at all. And yeah,
I guess the thing for me that I feel like is missing is that he just disappears. I feel like to me, that character is set up to either be a creep, which I think is, like you said, that's not necessarily the story that needs to be told here, or he is a representation of a branch that Amelia could grab onto that might be a positive outlet for all this stuff. Because she is, in that moment, outed that she has been lying about why she hasn't been at work, which then is either this opportunity for her to like have this conversation with another adult, like someone outside of the situation, and I think could have strengthened like her dissent if that is offered and she refuses it. You know what I mean? To me, that would have like possibly strengthened the idea of her actively not taking care of what she needs to take care of, which then fuels the Babadook more.
It also kind of feels like something that may have been there but had been cut.
Yeah, that's
possibility.
absolutely a possibility for
It
sure.
felt like it was pretty present just because she dissed her child in front of a coworker, which was completely uncalled for and inappropriate, and just spoke to her dissent, I thought.
Yeah, for sure.
And then he just melted from embarrassment.
Yeah, and that's fair. It feels incomplete to me. Like, and that makes his character, like, in a movie where we have a character like Claire, who is very much a supporting and smaller character, but still feels fleshed out. It just makes his lack of any dimension outside of that more apparent to me. And so
that's fair.
I think it's the only thing. I think that's part of the reason that it, like, I'm like, meh. I don't know. It feels weird. I think also like it's, movies have those characters all the time where it's like, this character is here to get the person from this place to this place where we need the character to be. And I think without that, that's what his character feels like. But anyways, I was just wondering because he struck me as weird the first time I watched this, and then I got the exact same feeling watching it this time. So I wasn't sure if that's isolated to me or whatever. But yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, what else? Were there other things that you guys want to talk about, production-wise or anything? I know that there's a lot to kind of dig into with this, but I think the book is worth talking about. Which holy shit, Rob has the book.
Yeah.
Not in the form. It's not the book, thank God. But it is the book, which is a really incredible piece of art in itself.
Yeah, it was crowdfunded just a little bit after the movie came out, and took them like 2 years to make, as these things do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was really, really into the movie and was excited about it. And
Yeah.
when it came, I was excited to hold it and stuff. I mean, and everybody, everybody who had seen the movie, you know, I'd watched the movie with a bunch of people and stuff, and they're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why do you?" And you guys kind of reacted that way a little bit too. But like, yeah, what is wrong with you, dude? But,
Gwen and I didn't touch the book.
yeah, that's fine.
And I won't.
I definitely
That's
touched
cool.
the book.
I was like,
My hands were all
you
over
brought
the
this
Baba book.
into my home where my child is sleeping upstairs?
If you could just deal with your own shit, you'll be fine.
That's right. Just
I can't.
feed it worms, and it's not a problem. Yeah, I do really like it, even though it's terrifying and everything. I keep it on, like, yeah, we've got
Your nightstand.
yeah, right by my bed. I read it every night. No, yeah, we've got like our TV and our movies like up on this shelf, and then above that we've got another shelf with a bunch of knickknacks and stuff, and so that's like in our front room, like, because it looks cool.
Yeah.
I think it's really
Welcome
cool.
to my house.
Yeah,
Good
exactly.
coffee table piece.
Yeah.
No, I is there a significance to that? It is a children's book that is kind of the physical manifestation of this thing. I've thought about it. I can't think of anything that really I can connect with it.
I don't know that there necessarily is, other than, I don't know, maybe that adds an element of creepy in a way. There's like a real quick line that they skim over in that scene with all the moms where they, "Oh, you were a writer one time, right?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I just some articles and some kid stuff." So like, I guess she made the book, but or something like her alter ego Babadook stress monster in her brain like made her make the book or something.
Yeah. Well, and I think like too the idea of like that he has trouble, that her son has trouble sleeping, and so like I feel like a lot of those problems at the beginning feel like they're stemming from like lack of sleep or something like that, and so it's maybe this bedtime story, you know. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. There's a lot there.
It's a bit of like mean, like stress monster revenge against the kid, because he's like read me the story again, and she's like, okay, and like, she's tired and wants to go to sleep. So I guess that could be like the significance of it being like a pop-up kids book. Is like, here's your fucking story, kid. Like,
I'll give you something to be afraid of.
yeah.
This will help you sleep.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, we talked about this briefly before as well, but the fact that the Babadook, I don't know if I would say now, but like definitely for a period of time after this movie came out was an LGBTQ icon. And I think it is mostly, everything I read basically traces it back to this Tumblr thread, which just begins with someone saying, whenever someone says the Babadook isn't openly gay, it's like, did you even watch the movie? And then the next comment, it's canon, basically. I mean, he created a pop-up book of himself for the drama of it all, which I guess, like, became its own meme, and people just ran with it in a way that's kind of incredible. Down to the fact that I'm pretty sure there was a version of this movie released that the sleeve is a rainbow, like the background, it's just the normal movie, but it's just got a rainbow sleeve that goes over it, that I think they released at some point, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, and I was telling you earlier, like, I think I remember reading about, like, it showed up on Netflix, like on accident somehow, like under the LGBTQ like section on Netflix, and so that's like that kind of like birthed this whole like concept, like okay, that's a gay movie, all right. Like, I just kind of ran with it.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
The internet is simultaneously the worst and best place in the world. And, man,
yeah, you can find like pictures of like Babadook that's all like rainbowy and like gay pride parades and stuff. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
it's so interesting. Yeah, what a wild what a wild life for that character to have post this movie. That's so good.
Yeah, so I guess that means like her stress turns into like a really dramatic, fabulous, evil monster, like
Yes.
gay monster.
Oh man, what a
her stress manifests itself. Like,
yeah. Unfortunately, it is. Jennifer Kent has already confirmed we're never getting a sequel, so we'll never truly have a fully canonical answer to
Where he actually learns how to turn his jazz hands
weird
up instead of keeping it at his side.
yeah.
Man, yeah. So many stories left untold, but thankfully, again, well, I don't know if Tumblr is that place anymore. Unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
R.I.P. Tumblr.
Does she have any? Has she directed anything else since?
Yeah.
Yes, I haven't seen it, but she did a movie called The Nightingale, which is not a horror movie. It's like a historical drama that deals with racism, I think, and romance or something. Yeah.
Is it based on a book?
Maybe. I don't know. I've been meaning to look into it, but life happens and you get busy, and it also wasn't like widely released or easy to get a hold of. I think at one point I probably could have tried to see it at like the Broadway or something, but I don't go up to Salt Lake because I don't have money or time. So like, but yeah, I still would really like to see that at some point, just to see her like try like a different genre and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that like in reading this, she maintained all the rights to the Babadook and everything, and that actually is one of the reasons it was a pretty big like success in America for like what it was. It made a good amount of money based on their budget, and so it is something that probably very easily could have just been sequelized if a studio decided on it. But
God,
she
that
was
sounds terrible.
very much smart enough to maintain those rights, and has confirmed there will not be any more Babadook. But
Watch as she George Lucas's it, and we're getting Babadook bed sheets,
Yeah.
Babadook lunch boxes.
and in 12 years
She'll
we'll
do
get
3
the
prequels.
yes, exactly. We'll get the Babadook special edition, in which we learned the Babadook was actually a giant cockroach the entire time, which they intended to do, but didn't have the
And
money.
his head will like miraculously like shift over and like dodge something.
Connected to the Men in Black universe with the roaches,
Babadook, yes, a Men in Black story.
crossover.
Well, yeah. Is there? Is there any other things that you guys wanted to bring up about the Babadook specifically? I know we've talked about a lot of things very quickly, but I'm not sure if there's anything else specific you guys wanted to bring up that you're dying to tell.
Has anyone else ever swept a kitchen for an hour after breaking glass in case there is glass just bounced up in your food? Or because that's one of my worst fears is glass in my food, and it was in the movie.
That was absolutely in this movie.
I
Yeah.
feel like if you sweep for an hour, you still will find glass. That's my experience, anyways. Like, yeah.
At some point, you just have to walk around barefoot until you find the last piece.
Okay.
That's the last stage of cleaning glasses, the barefoot walk.
The
what I've been
test
doing
of
wrong.
faith, I believe it's known as.
Well,
Yeah.
so when the cockroaches came out of the wall, I was like, okay, you're not going to go to a mental hospital, fine. But you're not even going to call an exterminator? Like,
You're gonna start mopping the floor.
you're going to
That's
mop?
not gonna-
That's not, no. Like,
Well, I actually do think that's another like sub theme in this movie is the idea of her having financial struggles, because there is the tooth thing through that entire movie, and I think you can also say it's just indicative of her not dealing with problems of any kind. But it also could be a financial thing. Like that was the thing I thought of this time, is like the financial struggles of a single mother who like still owns a house. There's still tons of just tons of money that go into houses no matter what. But yeah, I actually thought about that, and I was like, is it because she can't afford it, or is it just she's not going to deal with it correctly, which she is clearly not doing with anything else in her life? And yeah,
that makes
guess
sense.
so interesting.
I guess I would posit that the second one there, like that she's just like really, really tired, really stressed out, like just kind of shutting down in a lot of ways. And I know that this happens to me sometimes, like where like it would be better to like actually like fix a problem or whatever, but I'll put it off, or you know, I can either do this right and like spend a lot of effort on it and like be worn out by it more, or I can just like sweep this under the rug or not, you know,
Or
like,
mop it under the rug.
Exactly, mop the
Yeah.
floor a little bit. That'll fix the problem enough for right now. Like, I mean, that does happen, I think, when you're in a downward spiral, and
Yeah.
you know, it can be hard.
Yeah, for sure. I just remembered this actually. That is one of the things I want to talk about in this movie. I like that the resolution of this movie is her finally accepting help from her neighbor, which I think is a really good resolution to a lot of that, because they're in her. I think. Sorry, I've got 9 thoughts in my brain right now, but the idea that at the beginning of the movie she is when she first sees Grace, she's like, "Have you taken your trash out?" And she's like, "I'm going to do it later." She's like, "I'll just do it now and then it'll be done." Like she's so willing to help others when that opportunity arrives, like but is so unable to ask for help or accept that help. That like resonated with me in a way that was like, it's such a great like subtle other thing that's in there, and to have that be a part of the resolution of the movie, I think is a really great reinforcement of that idea. But that was something that stuck out to me this time, I guess. So
Yeah, that old lady is so sweet. That's another really great performance. That's very, very small, easy to overlook, I think. But yeah, she feels very, very real, like a really nice neighbor would feel.
yeah,
I guess like I wanted to say, like when she does reach out for help, like when she goes to the cops, when she calls her sister, and like that's really crushing when you like do put forth the effort to like reach out for help and it is not there where you like seek it out or whatever. And so like that's another another reason like why someone wouldn't want to, or like when that happens it just kind of shuts it down, which it's not like a reasonable thought necessarily, like, oh, I should, like the reasonable thing is like I should go to somebody else, like, and keep trying to get help. But yeah it's kind of crushing when you do like try to get help and it's not offered or not actually helpful.
Yeah. For sure.
Now I just want to talk about Midsummer.
Oh man, I love that
kind
movie.
of segues into some of that. Yeah,
I would love to like come back and like watch that with you guys sometime.
Nope.
If you don't like the gore, then that's gonna be a super upsetting movie.
I'll be absent for that one.
My wife really loves that movie too, and she'd love to come and talk about it too. I think.
Well, she can sub for me. That'd be great.
Yeah, we definitely should. I think it's like we are getting to the point where it's like, are we really a movie podcast if we haven't discussed Ari Aster's movies at this point?
I mean, I'm all for that right now.
We should probably do that.
That'd be great.
Well, great. Well, we'll kind of wrap discussion here for now. But we'll be back after a short break for some recommendations. And we'll also be back next week with Trevor Newsome to talk about a movie very much like The Babadook, Tom Hanks' classic, The Burbs. So it's really great. I can't wait to talk about it because it's a really wild movie that it's probably like in my top 10 movies I've just seen so many times because it's just on at my house or around that I'm very excited to talk about it. But yeah, so if you want to reach out to us, our email is rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram at rewatcherspod, and we'll take a brief break and be right back. Welcome back to the recommendations section of our podcast, where we talk about some other stuff that we've been watching over the last week or a month or whatever, or reading or playing. It's whatever we want to do. Justin, what do you have to recommend for us?
Okay, so this week I finally started watching BoJack Horseman, which
cool.
I've been wanting to watch for a really long time, and I finally started it while I was at the gym this week. I've only watched the first episode, and I really liked it. I think cool. I'm actually going to get into this show, and that's exciting because I think they're starting like their 7th season or something right now on Netflix.
It just ended. Like
just ended. All right,
happened.
Okay, well that's good to know because there is an end out there. But yeah, it was it's surprising. Like the humor in it it's not always my kind of humor, but kind of is at the same time. And like there's one scene that I was like, okay, like we're just gonna go straight to bestiality apparently, because like that's just the I mean your main character is a horse and he's sleeping with but yeah, so that happened in the first episode, and I was like, okay, all right, well, I'm interested.
But what
not
did you
for
think
that
of the
reason.
show?
They got you.
Not for
Learned
that
a lot
reason.
tonight about Justin.
I remember when I first started watching that show, the opening and closing credits, the music that plays over that, which Patrick Carney from the Black Keys wrote the theme song, and then Group Love wrote the closing credits song, which is stuck in my head constantly. They're just so fantastic and like are so good. I'm excited for you to get further into that show because and
I noticed
it goes places.
executive produced by Jesse Pinkman, right?
Yes,
What's that guy's name?
Aaron Paul.
Yeah, Aaron Paul.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
who's also one of he voices characters in the show too. So but yeah, I'm excited to dig into it.
Cool. Yeah, it's a great show. Katie, do you have anything to recommend?
So funny that you should mention Jesse
Segue.
Pinkman,
There we
because
go.
I am in season 5, episode 8 of Breaking Bad. I've never seen it before. I had to skip a good chunk of your year in review podcast because I haven't had anything spoiled for me.
What are we talking about?
I don't know if I I don't think we did spoilers.
Oh, just in
Maybe
case,
I might.
I
I
did
don't-
skip
yeah,
part
just
where
in
Tyler
case,
said something like a very specific scene I remember because he like was like warning everyone
Oh,
about it.
okay.
Okay.
Got it.
But yeah, it is amazing. It took me a while to get through it. There was some slow bits that I just I didn't feel like feeling that way for a bit, so I switched to Community. But yeah, I'm in it now. I have a coworker that's heavily like they've watched the series probably 10 times. Like they love it.
Nice.
So I'm texting them and being like, I hate this person, I hate this person, I hate this person. And then I'll text them another IMD picture. I hate this person, I hate this person. And they always have to say, why this time? And it's like, everyone sucks so bad. But yeah, the character development in that show is fantastic. And I'm interested to see how it ends because there's been so many spin-offs of that with El
yeah.
Camino and Better Call Saul. I
the
haven't
newest
seen any
season-
of those.
The newest season of Better Call Saul, I
Yeah,
think, is
so-
I think it's releasing on Netflix like this month, the end of the month,
Yeah.
I believe. Like next week, I think. Better Call Saul is really good.
Yeah, he's
it's really good.
He's such an amazing part of that whole series, and like the acting in it is just phenomenal. You
Yeah.
just can't beat Bryan Cranston or Aaron Paul. They're just so good, and so it'll be interesting to see how it ends. But
Yeah.
I feel like I've missed like a huge chunk of pop culture because I haven't seen it. So, and Tyler hasn't seen it, so I have to pause it anytime he comes downstairs.
I'm excited to hear what you think about the end, and yeah, we'll have to let's talk.
Yeah.
Very excited. Cool. Tyler, what did you have to recommend for us?
So Katie and I started watching Sorry to Bother You last night,
Okay.
and I got about halfway through, and I was just super tired, so I went to bed. I don't know if I'm gonna finish it.
Okay.
I was really excited when I saw the trailer when it was about to come to theaters. I was like, oh man, I really want to see this movie. It's just not doing it for me. I think anything like message wise it has to say I've seen before, already done, and in less heavy handed ways. And when it was heavy handed, it's so outrageous. It's more entertaining, like it's Idiocracy and stuff like that. That feels like it's like trying to be that same vein, but it's like Idiocracy is so much more bonkers that I'm like, I'd probably rather watch that.
Okay. I will say there's a tipping point in Sorry to Bother You where it will definitely become more bonkers than Idiocracy.
Like
Way more bonkers.
Yeah.
like enough
Have you
that's
seen Sorry to Bother You?
Yes.
Okay.
You and maybe you won't end up liking it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That
It's-
is true.
it's
I
nuts.
don't know if that will
Yeah.
make you like
Yeah,
it,
because
but it does.
I think
yeah.
the pacing also kind of sucks, to be honest.
Yeah.
And
Same feeling.
that's hurting it. There's things I like about it, but not enough to keep me going. And it also is a lot more, hurts my opinion of it a lot more, the fact that they're not good at mouthing the white voice part. They're like
okay.
mumbling when it's like very animated vocals and it's not matching. And I had a feeling I was gonna have from the trailer, but it's bothering me a lot more than I thought it would. Like it disconnects me so much that so
Okay.
it's a very interesting premise, really fun premise. I love the cast a lot. It's just not hooking me right now.
Okay.
And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, so we'll not talk about it if I have. I recently beat Resident Evil 2 Remake. Have I talked about this
we
before?
haven't talked about this.
Yeah. As someone who actually never played the original Resident Evil 1, 2, or 3, I started with 4. It was a really interesting experience, and I loved it. It's definitely, I think, what that franchise needed. It's very... it takes a little bit step closer to reality while still remaining the weird, cheesy, bonkers franchise that it is.
And Leon Kennedy is the star.
Fucking Leon
so
Kennedy.
If Leon Kennedy's not the star of your Resident Evil game, what the fuck?
Yeah. You know what's really depressing about that game, though, is the fact that, like, the story's not going to go anywhere because you know what happens in the future installments, and you know that they were just trying to milk that cow until they got to 6, and then they didn't know what to do with it. So hopefully if they make more of the remakes, they canonically change, like, where that story goes, because I would like to see I mean, Leon's either got to bang or kill Ada Wong at some point. So,
Or does he?
or vice versa.
Or Mary, isn't that the third choice?
Kiss, kill, Mary, right?
It's got to happen. So, yeah. Or they both get infected, become one giant monster, and the girl from 4 has to kill him. I don't know.
Ashley?
The president's daughter?
By just nagging at it. Anyway, that's what I got. If you
Have you played the? Damn it! I just am thinking of her as Ashley now. But have you played the Claire? Have you
yes,
played any
I've
Claire
beaten
story?
both
Okay.
Claire's and Leon's, and I did 2 of the other like Ghost Survivor missions,
gotcha.
like the theoretical. If these people survived, here's how they
Right.
did, but they didn't. Which is fine. They're more just like challenging because there's no like real cutscenes to them or anything like that. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. If you have any platform to play it on, I'd recommend it. And if you like zombie stuff, especially.
Yeah, it's really good. Cool. Rob, what about you? What do you have to recommend for us?
A couple of things. Bloodborne. I know it's not new, but a friend of mine, Scott, introduced me to it, and at first I was really, really frustrated and like why does anybody like this game? This game is so stupid. And then he just helped me like a little bit initially, just like running through, like getting somewhere finally. And I'm on the DLC, the Hunter's
I've never done the DLC.
Hunter's Nightmare. And yeah, that's really cool. The bosses are nuts. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that's been a lot of fun. Been playing that for a few months. And a book I read, finished reading recently, which is also not new, but it was new to me. It was The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. And it's by Michael Chabon, I think is how you say his name. And it's like about these 2 people in New York in the 30s when comic books kind of started up, or at least started being like a more popular thing, like superhero comic books specifically. And they create a superhero character and make a comic book. But it's like really big and epic and sad and beautiful. Like it has to do with like the Holocaust a lot and like refugees. And then like it deals with like with homosexuality and being like closeted and stuff in the 30s, and like when you really, really weren't allowed to be gay. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of long. It's like 600 pages, and they're like they feel like really big pages and stuff to me. But it was really good. It's kind of an emotional roller coaster, but yeah, very, very well written. Good book about comic books.
Cool. And what was the name of that one again?
The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. That sounds really interesting. Great. Gwen, what did you have to recommend for us?
I've got 2. So I've been watching a lot of Bon Appetit while I work because I like to torture myself when I'm hungry, I guess. But Priya is my foodie crush, and I love her. But I've been watching Brad Leone Sits Alive, and he's just a giant goofball and super fun, and the editing frequently makes me laugh out loud. And it's just fun. So,
Are these Netflix series?
It's a YouTube
No, it's YouTube.
series.
YouTube, okay.
Or a YouTube channel.
it's a cooking show.
Right. Okay. Cool.
I'm apparently one of those people.
No, that's you are not. I mean, you are by no means an outlier. I feel like there are plenty of people who are those people. So I'm sure you're in good company.
Yep. Okay.
People who watch YouTube? Is that what we're talking about? I'm so confused. What people?
No.
Cooking show
If that's
person.
the only box you fit into, you're in very bad company. I think.
No, but I've like actually put their recipes up and like Babish's recipes like on YouTube and cooked along with them.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's like the thing that I wish I had done, because I think that's the way you should do
It's like
that, for
painting
sure.
with Bob Ross. Like that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I always get to the end and I'm like, man, I want that. And I'm like, well, there's Pringles here. So that's very
I
good.
remembered I bought Pringles today. Score.
You're welcome.
Okay, and then my second one, I started House of Suns by Alastair Reynolds. So another sci-fi, because apparently I'm on a sci-fi kick. So it starts out kind of slow, but I kind of got into it about 2 hours in when one of the main viewpoint characters just sort of casually descends into a Dyson swarm and is then consensually ingested by a giant human-like creature as a means of data transfer. And then, like, while he's in the stomach, the giant's like, all right, I have what I need. You may now exit through my rectum.
I've seen this porno.
I think I just learned something about myself.
So, yeah.
A Dyson swarm, you say?
A vacuums?
Yes, exactly.
That's a lot of roller
It's a lot of
balls.
suck.
That's pretty far out there.
Yeah, it got a little
sounds
weirder than I
delightful.
actually thought the scene was. So, thanks for correcting me. But yeah, there's been that weirdness and a lot of other, like, hinting at other big sci-fi ideas that I've seen elsewhere, but I'm excited to see how they play out here.
Cool. Is it like, well, maybe I could tell this from what you just told me, but also maybe not. Is it a harder sci-fi?
Yeah,
like, is it
definitely.
okay? I mean, I could very easily see
Intended.
something being much softer sci-fi with a man getting spit out of a giant cosmic entity.
Yeah, that's like Gears of War installment. Like,
Cool. Okay. Okay. I have a few things to recommend this week, actually. So I mentioned last week I finished. God damn it! I'm always going to forget the names of these books.
Three Body Problem.
Yes, thank you. Jesus. I started The Dark Forest and was like, I don't know if I'm here yet.
It's hard for a while.
So I decided to pick up a book in the interim called Have a Nice Day, written by Mick Foley, who is the man behind the wrestling persona of mankind. And it is a 700-page autobiography, and it is one of the most joyful things I have read in a very long time. If you don't know anything about Mick Foley, watch Undertaker throw Mankind off Hell in a Cell in 1998, and then just watch any interview with him where you realize that Mick Foley is the warmest, kindest, most just well-spoken wrestler probably ever to have been in the business. And he's a really great storyteller as well. So I've been reading that and loving that. I've continued to just play Yakuza games, which I might be doing until I die, apparently. But they are very good and have thrust me into a new world of Japanese media, which is Yakuza crime movies. Primarily from the 70s, which are very good. But I watched one that's actually a little more recent called Sonatine, and it is. Have you seen Sonatine?
Yeah.
I loved Sonatine so much,
Yeah.
and is just kind of about an aging Yakuza and what that means. And it's really delightful. It's beautifully shot. The performances are wonderful. And it's just more of that world, which I'm just dying to get into. And then I also started a seminal anime from the 1980s called Fist of the North Star, which is essentially Mad Max if Mad Max had an intimate knowledge of pressure points that would make people's bodies explode when he touched them in the right order. And that also is just really perfect. So yeah, that's what I've been watching this week. Those are my recommendations. But yeah, like I mentioned earlier in the show, we will be back next week talking about The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks, which is just a delightful little film, and we'll be joined by Trevor Newsom. Rob, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for bringing the Babadook, and we'll definitely have to talk some Ari Aster stuff in the future. We will put that together. But yeah, so signing off, you heard me, Tyler Harris, and
Gwen Hammer.
Tyler McKinley.
Justin Hammer.
Katie McKinley.
Rob Starks.
thank you so much. Satan is our friend. Satan is our pal.
I was going to say that earlier.